All right, this is Ubaid on behalf of B Electronics, and in this video, we'll be talking about how banks create money supply. Okay, so how bank deposits, let me write this down over here. So how bank deposits create money supply. Okay, so how bank deposits create money supply. Now, when it comes to bank deposits, when you make a deposit into a bank, let's say this is your bank that you deal with. Okay, when you go to your home branch and make a deposit, okay, this money is technically a liability. So over here you have liabilities and assets. Okay, so liabilities, this would be your deposit, and assets would be your required reserves. So required reserves and loans. Okay, so any money that the bank loans out to individuals and businesses, okay, from which it basically makes income relevant to interest. Okay, so you have loan, okay, lent out to individuals and businesses. All right, now what ends up happening is when an individual makes a deposit, so let's say this is XYZ, XYZ makes a deposit, okay, this deposit ends up under bank's liability. Now, out of this deposit, okay, let's say this is step one, out of this deposit, the bank will put aside a certain amount of money as required reserves. Okay, this may be in the bank's vault. Okay, so the required reserves will be 10% of your deposit. So this will be 10% of the deposit. So if the deposit is $100, for example, the required reserve will be $10. Okay, so this will be $10. And the rest will be available for loans. Okay, this could be a personal loan, it could be an auto loan, okay, it could be your line of credit, so on and so forth. So the rest will be available as loans. So this will be 90%, 90%, okay, of the deposit. All right, now once you have this figured out, once you have this worked out over here, okay, the next step is relevant to the lender or the borrower. Okay, so the borrower who borrows money from the bank, okay, the money that the bank lends out, okay, the borrower will go ahead and deposit this money, the loan, into his or her bank. Okay, which means you have a separate T account over here for the second bank. And this second bank has to do with the person who borrows the money. All right. So when this person makes a deposit, it goes under your bank's liability, which means that the bank will have $90 as liability. So this is $90 as liability. Okay, and under assets, bank will have 10% of 90 bucks. So let's say this is, okay, $9. All right. And the rest of it will be available for loan one more time. Okay, so this is step one, this is step two, and this is step three. So the rest of the figure, which is $81, will be available for loan for the bank to lend to borrowers, okay, through whom the bank can make money off interest. Okay, so interest income. All right, and this cycle continues. So this is a cycle. This cycle continues until the bank has no more money to lend. Okay, the bank has no more money in its access reserve. Okay, because it has to keep 10% of the deposits under its reserve account. Okay, in the vault. Now, once you do that, whatever's left is available for borrowing. Okay, however, if this money, if this is equal to zero, if there is no reserve, access reserve, okay, then you cannot continue. Okay, which means at this point the cycle stops. All right, so this is how bank creates money supply using deposits, using a single deposit, as a matter of fact. So you have a single deposit that goes into several other banks, okay, based on how the loans work. Okay, and once you have that, you have a cycle of deposits and a cycle of transactions. Okay, eventually what ends up happening is, as I mentioned earlier, okay, your access reserve will be equal to zero, which means the bank will no longer be able to give out loans, and this is where the cycle stops. Okay, however, a single deposit in this case was able to create an access money supply. Okay, so the deposit may have been $100, but the money supply will be more than 100. Okay, so in this case, for example, if you have $100 over here, okay, you have $90 in here, the total money supply will be $190. Okay, this is your money supply that grows the economy within a country. All right, so that will be it for this video. On behalf of V Electronics, this is Obey. Have yourself a great day.